we don't need a motion off of it.
Right, but I have a question for Chantel.
Okay.
Are you aware of any more claims coming from Downard?
No.
Cremation? Do you think we're all through all that?
I'm under the impression that we are. I did receive one from Wilkes. It had been transferred to Wilkes, but
Okay.
it ended up not being our county. So I transferred that one to Twin Falls County.
Okay.
But I'm not aware of any others.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Ryan, you're up.
All right, we got Tyson and Kyle too. You guys should join.
Sweet. Get up here, boys.
Okay.
Brought the heavy hitters
Did you all
today.
pass these in?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they should all come in.
Well, they're not right now. Snooze, you lose.
So,
Wow, Kyle's feeling feisty this morning.
starting it off right. Okay, so jump in.
Yep.
Okay. So,
Hold on one second. Because this is a matter of a vacancy, we're not speaking about any individual specific and no names, correct? And if we need to do that, there needs to be an executive, but we're good, right?
we don't need names.
No names.
All right, because we had that happen last week where somebody started saying names. It's like, stop that. Let's not. We're not talking about people. We're talking about the position, right?
Right.
Okay, cool.
So I'll kick this off, and then you guys feel free to add any details. And Christy and I have also talked a little bit, so you feel free as well. So at Road and Bridge, we have a employee who is going to be called into active duty for military service
Mm-hmm.
for 400 days.
Mm-hmm.
In the absence, we've been talking about options for getting these guys help with how do we do this as far as employment types, right? And so one of the options we talked about was a temporary employee. There's some limitations that makes that less desirable than we'd like, because you can only have the person be in for 5 months, and then we have to have a break in service for at least a month, and then hire them back, and there's no benefits or anything associated with it. It's going to be hard to find good talent that's going to be willing to do something like that during this duration of this vacancy. Another idea that we talked about, and part of the reason we're bringing it here is because it may set precedent, and which I don't think is a bad thing. But what we had talked about is using that vacant budget number and hiring another full-time status benefited position into that, using our military services guys' budget line, right?
And actually, we did that last time he was on leave.
And you did that? Okay.
So,
So it's not that big, okay.
no,
Well, but then the problem is when he comes back.
And to address that, what we could do is when we do a vacancy announcement for the position, and when we make a hire, we announce that this is a fixed term position with a set end date that would align with when our employee is going to return from service. So
Okay.
whether it be, like a year and a couple months, we write up an appointment letter when we hire someone saying that this is for a year and a couple month term. We'll figure out the exact dates, but that way it's clear right up front how long they're going to be working.
Okay.
now we will have a payout for the individual, because he or she will have vacation and sick and comp that they'll continue to accrue, because they're gonna be a full-time employee. So we'll have a payout at the end of that employee's
For the person
term.
that's going to be hired.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
We will also have, potentially, they may continue to carry health insurance, which they'll pay a COBRA rate, but depending on, that could affect us or not, depending on their usage of their insurance. And then we will potentially have unemployment that we'll
Okay.
also have to carry.
And then the other question is, and I can't remember because I tried to look it up real quick, under the Soldier Sailor Relief Act and some other things, does the chief continue? He's not ending his employment, so he's still on
Yeah.
the county.
He's just on
Does
leave.
he continue to accrue leave while he's gone?
No.
No.
There are some companies that did that while we were gone, and I was just curious
Our
of.
policy doesn't
Okay.
state you have to be paid 56 hours to
Okay,
accrue leave.
okay. I just wanted to make sure, and then we're aware of, in that same policy, that when that individual returns, that does all seniority, rights, all that stuff. We just want to make sure that that's something that we're,
Yeah, that's federal law, we have to do
Yes.
that.
What
Yes.
we'll end up doing is this person will be hired, he'll be paid out of that same employee's line that's on leave. And then, he'll use that pay.
yeah.
Will probably be less because this individual has a little bit more seniority. So he'll just use that same line item for the
Okay.
duration of his.
Has he already left?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we started working on this.
I couldn't
month and a
remember.
half or so ago, but it's been, so when this employee was deployed in the past, no, we weren't involved in, of course, the former director and prior legal team was. They put a letter together that they submitted to the employee that we hired that said, when this employee returned, his employment would be,
Yeah.
unless we had a full-time position, which is, we lucked out and did.
That could happen.
So we had a full-time position come open, so we ended up keeping
Yeah.
the temp because he was a very good worker and he's still working for us. So we never know, that could potentially happen, but
I was gonna say, odds are they'll find
Yeah.
out at home in the
Probably have
county,
something.
so.
Or if not, they'd probably be at the top of the hiring list if one does open up. No.
yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
My question here is, what's the salary of the new individual?
It would be step 0 at the same grade of the position that that the vacant.
So it'd be less than the current position that's held, Ernie.
Okay.
So I'm
Which
good.
that would help us, potentially help with the payout too. There might be enough difference
Yeah.
between.
correct. Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Do we need a motion?
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the hiring request as presented for Public Works.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Any other motions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. If you guys do get a chance to tell the chief to keep his head down. So it happens when you're a subject matter expert in ammunition supply and disposition.
Okay.
How we doing?
Thank you.
All right. To the clerk then.
All right. So, the new recording software that we have has, Dan, do you want to come up and chat about this one too?
You're gonna be here for a while.
So, the new recording software that we have is amazing. One of the things that has been interesting is, and speeds things up for our employees in that office, is the people coming in for marriage licenses can fill out all of their own information online. And we have a couple of kiosk computers in there at the counter that they then fill out. They can do it at home. People don't really like to do it for whatever reason, and it's a building system. We talked to Bonneville County, and they say that people, for the most part, really do still come in to do it, and they've been using this program for years. So what we're finding is there are times, because it does take a few minutes for them to do that, is we're getting a little bit of a bottleneck there in the counters when they're both full. So what we'd like to do, and I talked with Dan about this with Carrie, is if you imagine walking into the recording office, the wall to the left, bumping out between the pillar and the hall wall, taking that wall out and building a little cubby in there where we can put those kiosk computers for people to fill out their marriage license information for the ladies then to.
Even if you built a half wall in the back.
Yeah, so we've talked about it with Dan a little bit. We've come up with a plan that he, so you talk about the actual building and what it's gonna take and timeline and things like that.
Sure. It's pretty light on the demo side. It's just about a 4-foot wide wall.
That's sheetrock wall, isn't it?
It's not.
Oh, it's an original?
Yeah. I know, darn it.
Yeah.
Then a half wall with a Formica cap on it, and then a full wall with an 8-foot Formica desktop. So it's pretty minimal. We have some leftover studs, we have some leftover sheetrock, we have some paint, we have some carpet. So on my end, it's pretty minimal.
And I'm gonna help him. So total bill for this project is a whopping $2,500. And $1,500 of that is going to be the desktop counter and the wall. I mean, we want it to look nice and comfortable in there, but we have the computers already. We're just gonna move them.
How many computers will it facilitate then? How many stations?
So we're going to put 2 in there. It could potentially fit 3, but 2 will be pretty nice. And that little half wall will then be a communication window. So if people have questions, they can just
Talk
be
over
right
it.
there and talk over it. So it'll be open there, but also a little bit private for them with that full wall on the other side.
One of the questions I had, and I was looking at the proposal for the HR office downstairs as well, is I didn't see, in the proposal for the HR office, I didn't see a cost for your time. And I know we kind of talked about doing that last year where we started charging for Dan's time. Is that your,
Now, I would say on this project, so Dan's funds come out of the general fund. So there's not a tax levy that we're gonna take it from, because we pay for Dan. And so anything in the courthouse, especially when it comes to like the clerk's office, the clerk technically falls under the general fund. So there's not, I mean, you can do it to show for books, but it's basically the same fund. It's not like you're coming out of a different levy. And I'm more so that, like, if you go out to Road and Bridge, where Road and Bridge has their own levy, and he's remodeling Road and Bridge, I would say that you more track that one. I mean, this one, I would say, you could, but Dan's time on this one. The courtroom downstairs, if we're gonna pay for it as a building facility cost, I wouldn't say that we would charge ourselves. I'd say if the courtrooms are gonna pay for it, then you would. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I mean, I don't.
I
just
think
look
it's a tough conversation that we have, because we've talked about charging for Dan's time, no matter if it isn't us using him. So I think that's still a conversation. But on this matter here, I think it's a good idea, but I think we need to talk about the HR project, because I still want to get the bathrooms finished. I don't want a lot of small projects thrown at Dan, thinking that he has to get them all done. The bathrooms are still my priority.
Yes. Well, and I think it goes back to their tiling and how long are they going to have, Dan?
It's gonna be 5 weeks.
Did you hear that, Ernie?
But if the HR project, the next priority, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just
Well, and I think that,
priority.
I think if you had a project like this, and if you're doing the HR one, I think something like this you could probably do in tandem, because then you're not. I mean, you're going to frame it at the same time. You're going to
Frame
demo
it
at the same time.
yeah.
You're going to sheetrock it at the same time. I mean,
Well, I'm just saying that I don't want to start getting down that road we was getting before, where
Yes.
Dan pulled here and there and everywhere else. You
yes.
still got to keep the priority.
Yes. I don't have a problem with it with the project, but I'm with you, Ernie, on just the timeline side. Is we can fit it in and get it done. What I don't want to have done is have Dan have to try and mobilize 3 different times. If you can get it all done at one time, and he's okay with that, I would leave it to him on that. But you're right. I don't want 40 projects coming your way right now, because everybody thinks that 5 weeks they can. Well, Dan's got 5 weeks.
Right, so now I agree with you, Ernie, that this would definitely be a secondary priority. If you don't mind the project in and of itself, if you would approve it and then just say, based on Dan's timeline and work schedule with a priority in HR, then he can do it whenever he has. I think it's only going to take, what we talked, just a few days total. And a lot of that includes drying time. So,
Yeah.
So I agree with
I
you.
just know that Dan will never tell anybody no.
Yes.
I like to stay busy.
And Ernie, like I said, I agree with you on that. I don't have a problem with the project, and if they can facilitate those 2 kiosks to actually help move some of these things along, I think that's something we need to, work with. I would say that I'd make a motion that we approve the project to be coordinated with Dan, with the understanding that the HR project is top priority. There's a motion on the floor. Is there further discussion or any other motions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Dan, you have overtime and comp time or whatever else you have. I haven't looked at your thing lately, and you need to not burn the candle at both ends. So please, don't give up your family life just because you think you have to remodel something. All right.
I think it's gonna work out great to fit this in times where if we do HR, we might have a waiting time for ordering materials or getting a building permit, so.
Okay.
I just like to have projects stacked up to where we can slide them in and stay busy.
Okay. All right. We'll have you step off for just a minute and have Christy Klauser.
So this is kind of news to me. I hope this is in your packet.
Okay.
This is just our normal ITD grants, but they require approval by the board.
Okay.
Do you have any?
I read through it, it
No, it
made
looked
sense.
fairly straightforward to me. Let's look and make sure.
I'm good.
I'm good. All right, so here's the packet.
In the future, do you want these just as signature items, or do you want them presented?
No, having them like this as a presented item keeps it clean in the record, because then if we have to search for it, we actually can find what we're, like in our records,
Nope,
it's easier.
perfect. Just double checking.
So,
Yeah.
wanna,
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the FY 2022 mobilization grant as presented.
there's motion on the floor. Is there further discussion or any other motions? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. All right. Thank you very much. We will move on to Mike. Mike Jaglowski.
How about that?
Building got some subdivisions going on.
Yes, subdivisions.
Fancy pens.
Fancy pants.
The Sharpies.
Yeah.
Are you part of this discussion? Well, just if you are going to, just names and addresses if you need to pop in. It makes it easier. Come on up if you know. Everybody sits in the back and then we call them up and then we forget to get their name and address and then Nancy gets it, So it's easier just if you're coming to the table. All right.
Morning, Commissioners. Mike Jaglowski. I'm your Bannock County Engineer. There are 3 items. There are 2 bonds, 1 construction bond. I'll start with that. Mr. Banglin, who is the developer of Splash Hollow Development, LLC, asks for a construction bond for Lavalo subdivision, phase 2. Lavalo subdivision is an 18 lot subdivision with 1 multifamily lot just adjacent, no, I shouldn't say adjacent, but close to the city of Lava Hot Springs. On that, he asked for a construction bond to complete work in the amount of $446,000. I have the agreement. And I believe this is in your packet as well. I have the estimated cost and I have a certified bank draft for said amount.
Okay.
And should this be approved, we have a resolution, correct, that is ready for your execution.
Okay. Phase 1 went off without a hitch.
Phase 1 is finished.
Okay.
I'm not going to say without a hitch. There's always hitches.
Less hitches.
Less hitches, tolerable hitches.
Okay.
The road is dedicated. Everything is going, and it's my understanding that those lots are sold and ready to be built on.
Cool. I don't have a problem with this one.
No.
I don't know if you want to do this consecutively or if you want to have separate motions for each item.
We'll keep them separate. It makes it easier.
Okay, very
Mr.
good.
Chair, for resolution RS.
The bond first. We got to approve the bond, then we got to do the resolution.
Oh, that's right, sorry. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the bond in the amount of $446,000 from Splash Development LLC.
There is a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Ernie, you got anything?
Just put the due date in that motion.
The funds are due today.
No, the 5/31/2022.
Okay, so,
I'm saying,
all right, so Mr. Chair, I amend my resolution to include the funds due date by May 31st, 2022.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor for the bond. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, if you want to
you.
go in order for the next one, Commissioner, for resolution number.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I make a motion on resolution number 2021-96. We approve the resolution as presented.
There is a motion on the floor. Is there further discussion? Any other motions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Gentlemen, have a good time.
That's a start, one of 3. Okay, second is another bond and agreement to complete work. That is from Dioptra. Stuart Ward is here as the principal of Dioptra. The purpose of this bond is demonstrated and dictated within Idaho State Code. It's a surveying monument bond that assures that the interior survey monuments will be placed after the road is placed. Makes sense. We have very limited construction out there. We still want surveying bonds. It's required for the plat. Mr. Ward has asked for this work. I have reviewed the agreement. I've reviewed the request. This bond is for $2,825.00. I almost said a lot higher amount because I was joking with Stuart earlier.
Okay. And this is just put your pins, that's all you're doing, setting pins?
Yes,
monuments?
setting pins after construction is done.
Okay, I have no problem with this.
Yep. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we accept the bond in the amount of $2,825 to be complete. Do we have a to be completed date on here, Mike?
We do.
Yeah.
May 31st.
May 31st, okay. To be completed by May 31st, 2022.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Comment, Ernie, do you have anything?
No, I'm good.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I didn't see a specific signature for us on that one to accept. It would just be accepted by the Bannock County Office of Planning and Development Services?
That's, well, it's received by us.
Just received?
Yes, and I believe that Christie usually has a
Stamping?
stamp that you would want to sign.
Once it comes through?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll bring these down to Christie.
Okay. All right.
Okay, third item.
We gotta do that resolution.
Oh, pardon me.
Mr. Chair, on resolution 2021-97 for Dioptra, I make a motion we approve that resolution as presented.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That one passes. Go ahead.
Yes, third item is the final plat. I have before you the final plat for Lavalo subdivision, division, or phase 2 on that. We have worked with Randy. Actually, we've worked with the Lavalo subdivision for about 5 years. And phase 2 specifically, I've helped Randy as a current developer to bring this to pass and to get it to the place where it's at. We have reviewed this subdivision, and we have looked at all the aspects of it. Both Kyle and Tyson and myself have gone out and reviewed the site as it lays on the ground, and it lays out as it's depicted here. I ask that you consider this for approval, and we would appreciate your execution of this after this agenda item.
Okay. Ernie, do you got any comment on this?
No, I'm good.
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 Want to make a motion to approve
Mr.
this?
Chair, I make a motion that we approve the final plat and authorized signature.
There's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who do you have signing this?
I have Commissioner Moser signing this.
Ernie, where are you at?
Salt Lake.
You're Salt Lake, right?
Hey,
All right, I'll sign over it. I'll put my squiggly lines and they can figure it out.
Let's see, today is 12, right? Yes, sir.
We need to look at, on some of those.
Commissioner, you have,
Oh, yeah, crap, I forgot. I don't sign these. You make Ernie do it. Actually, I was thinking about that. We should just be able to, you should just be able to put, does it have to say the specific individual, or can you just say the representative of the commit, you know, a commissioner?
Commissioner.
I mean, does that make sense?
That's a good question.
So I don't go up to top of you and smear it like last time. That's one thing. Oh, Mike didn't sign it yet. Last time we did that. I mean, I mean, commissioner, because then it's, you know, that Jeff's here, I'm here, or here, whoever. Some of the smaller counties, they get kind of. That's not right.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's what deputies are for.
Right.
Otherwise, there's no reason to have it there.
Thank you, sir.
Cool. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. Appreciate it. I'll probably come out and check that out one of these days when it's not snowing on us.
So, yeah.
All right. Thank you. That was the last one, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Cool. All right. All right, Braden, you're well, this discussion's all of us, so. Terry, you wanna come on up?
I like that.
Pull up a chair.
Gonna pass those around for them. All right, Braden Clayson, Chief of Staff for the Commission, bringing before you guys the plan for the HR renovation or addition down in the courthouse or in the courtroom on the first floor. So Dan and I spoke on Friday after Dan had spoken with Carrie, and we're not sure exact timeline on this, but the agenda didn't include the total estimate, which came in at $49,500. With Dan having a lot of the materials needed already, carpet, lighting, framing, door frames, primer and paint and storage. We have just a rough estimate on office furniture. I know that was one of the things that we wanted to talk about. Christy, what was the fund that we thought maybe we would pull this out of?
Possibly the capital acquisition trust.
Okay.
So that's kind of what we're thinking as far as the funding source. And then Dan, if you would just kind of go over what you were thinking as far as timeline and waiting on materials and things like that.
So on the estimate, I didn't include the materials that I have. So the price is gonna go down.
Mm-hmm.
So just wanted to make that clear. And again, I just called an office furniture salesman and just got some roundabout numbers on that furniture. I guess the concern is the layout, which could be changed, but kind of did a drawing of what I thought would work really well for HR, but it maybe doesn't work so well on the courtroom side.
Is that that's only the half of the courtroom?
Yeah, so the drawing that you have just shows
Half a courtroom.
So what it does is where the public would have the seating, doesn't give doesn't give a lot of room between the gallery and the legal tables.
Okay.
So I just thought maybe we could talk about that. And
Well, and I know that's a discussion that we've had multiple times of just making sure that that's.
That would be kind of the configuration of the drawing, the lack of separation between public seating and council tables. Even though we're doing primarily remote hearings, we still have walk-ins for arraignments and poses security concerns on the side of the court. And then it looks like the 43 inches, I mean, that would facilitate ADA coming through that side of things. The primary concern is of whether the dual function of that space, besides the security considerations between public seating and bench, is whether we can, successfully coexist between court operation and the intended use for some of those more confidential HR conversations when we've got court going on in there, if that's the intent. And then beyond that, I'll say this generally, and I think this fits with the master plan that we've had ongoing conversations for the last couple of years of let's try and place a distinction between court function on the second and third floors and county operations on the first floor. We do have, just as a general court priority, our highest priority, and I know all these, the commission's job is always juggling priorities. The court's highest priority is to address the juvenile justice space, looking at both the needs of Judge Murray, the clerks, particularly the public and the attorneys, trying to meet with the public, and then Matt Olson's probation department. As the county's looking at where to invest and use, whether it's the money in that trust or the court facilities trust, we see that as our North Star if we're doing any commitment. I understand that the investment required to pull that off is significantly bigger than something like this. But if we are doing something like this and the county's looking at moving court operations up to the second floor, I mean, we can get behind it, but the challenge is this, I have concerns about whether we can pull this off and then probably be very successful, at least some of the HR function, but we'd be struggling with the current configuration for court operation. And maybe we want to throw out there whether or not it's a timing issue, if we could tackle moving the court operation up and then just flipping that entire space over to county operations and just pull it all off at once. I don't know where that fits budget-wise or project-wise, but the big picture is something that we want to talk to the county about, and we see the need for county space, whether it's HR or any other county function. It would just be, what's the best option for us to kind of preserve both function and I'd hate for us to also see investment in doing this half space that we wouldn't be able to recoup when maybe we just get the courtroom done upstairs and then just turn it over and you just do it finally how you want to find it.
Well, I think a lot of the discussion would be is Axline back into his, he'll be done when, or when they're done down here, he can move back in.
Yes.
So they're doing this one first, right?
Right.
So how long until they're done here? Just on this floor, not everywhere else. Week or 2 or 3?
Yeah, I'd say 3. We had an issue with some tiles showing up that was the wrong color.
Okay. So I would say that as soon as Axline can vacate that space, then I would say, if I could do it in a perfect world, I'm just saying in a perfect world, what I would do is I would start the facilitation of both, where arraignments, if we could master plan it out to a different courtroom, and then what we do is, because this is something we've talked about a lot, Carrie, and I still think that it would be best to mirror this courtroom just like the 3rd floor. You'd have to move, but there would be 2 offices that would become available in the judge's offices downstairs.
I'm all in on that. I've always looked at my occupancy of that space as secondary to getting another magistrate courtroom over here. So
Yeah.
don't worry about me. I'll find a spot.
Well, and so with that being said, I would prefer that if we can mobilize once and do them together, that is always the most ideal thing, because that's the easiest on staff, that's the easiest on everybody. And then what we do is we bring that courtroom, basically we're going to start, and you're going to basically start doing both at the same time. And if we could do it that way, I think it would make it the cheapest, the easiest, and the fastest, and then facilitate the move. It might mean that in the short term, we all might have to go find temporary houses for certain things, but I think that we could accommodate that if we did them together. I think you could do them separate, but I think it would be less efficient, and it would cost more, just in timing wise and purchasing of what you're doing and some of that stuff.
One thing we can think about, the court does have, the county has, in the court facility trust, I mean, this is an amount that there's it fluctuates, but it's always between high 3s and low 4s of money that gets deposited every month in the facilities trust. We're sitting at right at 48. I checked with Christy this morning. That's money that we could, the county could also bring to bear when it's that court remodel. And so that helps with, offset some of this cost a little bit. I know courtroom is one of the most expensive remodels that we could do, particularly when we're doing one from scratch because of the woodwork. And Dan and I were just chatting. It's going to be less than what we spent for 312. It's going to be, it's not going to be inexpensive though.
Well, you do have a standing request from a certain judge down the hall that if that courtroom ever moves, the old federal bench from the old federal courthouse to be integrated, which I'm all in favor of, because that cuts out like 20 grand of what you got to spend. So.
Okay, well, we're all about reusing and repurposing, but we'll look at what we can do. But part of that master plan would be is if we get this 218 switched over to courtroom, we turn over arraignments down to the county. You guys do whatever you want with it. Give me a little bit of office space down there where judges' chambers and the judicial assistants are sitting, just right next door. And I'm friendly. I'll be nice to Ryan.
Well, and I actually think having court services, while it would be good to have it on the 2nd or 3rd floor if we could, I don't think it would be a bad idea having it next to in HR in some of that other stuff, because you still have
collaborate on a ton of stuff. But one of the ideas too would be, as soon as we get this 218 and we build it out as a full magistrate courtroom with a 6-person jury box, Judge Axline, he's going to hate to hear this, but I think it's what's good for the system, is that courtroom over there with the jury box on top. Jason knows.
Yep, I know. Yep, we went in there.
The pillar in the middle of the room. It has the best chambers in the courthouse, has the worst courtroom in the courthouse. We'd flip that one over to arraignments because we wouldn't need that jury box for arraignments, and then the council tables are against the wall. So we don't have that physical separation.
Yeah.
we could put arraignments there, we could put Axline in a brand new courtroom, or whatever, Judge, in a brand new courtroom, and then you guys get that whole space down there for Ryan, for
Well,
conference room, for Howard.
That's the most sense.
Is this the time to have the master calendar discussion, since if we're gonna upheave and move, maybe this is the time to have that discussion and do it once and be done with it?
Well, and there is,
'Cause we've been kicking that around for 2 years now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kinda tired of kicking it
Well,
around.
Because part of this too is we get Murray and Matt Olson, and I know you guys have talked to Matt about how maybe the lander space and the annex space might help them out. But I think we need to validate too, because that is such a, I mean, the commission's been over there, and you guys know what the problems are for the public and for those employees, what it looks like. But I also know the price tag on that is significant.
yeah. Well, and that's why I say, with some of those moves that are occurring, if probation goes over to this space, that Lander building, that Lander building's not in, I mean, it's not in horrible shape, but
It just doesn't work for
it
what they're
doesn't-
using
yeah,
it for.
their makeup, it just doesn't,
Matt would be excited to go over there.
yeah.
From
I know the,
conversations I've heard.
Especially where it's ADA compliant, it fits
Right.
their model then.
for court services, I know one of their big issues, it's a soft building. Right?
Yes.
The money you would have to put in to push security externally, I don't know if we want to put another county dollar to that.
I don't want to put $150,000 to $200,000 to make it secure for probation, where we can do it just
So,
by moving them.
Carol, I agree with Jeff. I think we need to put it on the calendar and get our master calendaring going. I'd really like to move forward with this HR office suite though. I know that it may not be ideal for the courts, but it's a temporary basis, so I still like to move forward with it.
Well, and I think that's part of the discussion, like with Carrie right now today, I'm okay with saying, no, 218 is going to become a courtroom then. I'm, we'll have to figure out the funding side,
But does it need to become a courtroom if we're gonna master
If
calendar?
we're gonna
do
master
some of that?
calendar, that's.
well, but then that would be the discussion. I would still say that if you're going to drop a courtroom, I would drop or anything or keep a courtroom or add a courtroom. The master calendaring discussion, and that's a discussion that we've had with a lot of other commissioners and clerks, is that there's a lot of courthouses where the judges don't have their own individual courtrooms. And I know that's probably going to make some judges prickly and get kind of mad, but at the same time though, I don't know how to facilitate the space requirement. And so I think the main question is I would still probably rather have this one remodeled, because if you had the other courtrooms are to the point where they got to be done anyway.
Well, we're gonna have Judge Nass in there when we talk about.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's get it on the agenda.
Get that on the agenda and move forward.
Are you guys good for Tuesday? You'll be back? Everybody's back?
Will you and Judge Nass be available on Tuesday? I
Yeah,
think?
he would have come down today, but it's a Tuesday, Monday, and they're doing long motion.
Right.
He was tracking the
I would,
agenda item.
I would say in the expedience of time,
Can we do it start in the afternoon?
Yeah,
Because
do
it
it-
might be an hour or two.
yeah.
Like on a Tuesday.
Yeah, next week, Tuesday.
And what I would say is on the HR discussion, I would say let's continue to get us down
Get
the
that
path.
Get that ready.
Get the design done. We're gonna have to identify funds. We're gonna have to go through, and we need to now have a 95% plan on the HR discussion. I mean, that's what we're simply gonna have to do, is we're gonna have to go through there and have that talk. Where's it gonna be? How much? What materials do we exactly have? What are we gonna have to order? What would have to order if we did the courtrooms at the same time?
Okay.
That's where we need to tighten that plan.
I would say make the assumption that we'll have that whole courtroom. That way, it's easier to scale back than to have to go back
Yeah.
and redraw it. So make that assumption, and then we can meet next Tuesday with court, talk about the master calendaring.
And we can go from there.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, Carrie?
We'll make it work.
Well, that gives you guys a couple days to think about that and talk about it.
Well, and the other thing too is what I would also ask you too as you go through this is look at some of these offices and some of these people that we've had. We've had a lot of people that do they necessarily need to be right here with the courtroom? Are they working from home capable? This is a conversation we've had. What is their requirement? If they don't have to be necessarily right here, is there auxiliary space somewhere else that starts coming open? We need to know who can we push, who can we change. Maybe office space for you would be better up on one of the third floor, the second floor, but let's have that conversation too at the same time. If there's people that they need an office, but they don't necessarily need to be right here, can we move them? Maybe the land or space if they're not using the whole building.
I've got a couple positions that I know we can immediately bring to the table that lessons learned over the last 2 years that they can perform at a high level and productivity is not dropped off, working remote.
Sweet.
And there's some office space that we can put into play. I mean, maybe that helps out Ryan short term or whatever it might be. But I think
Yeah.
it's all in the context of the master plan. I mean, there's a couple things where we'll throw some state money and maybe a full-time position becomes a part-time position or something like that. Or we add a part-time position to help the full-time work. But we can all master plan that and see.
Okay. Well, let's just plan Tuesday and let's make sure that we have enough time. Don't schedule anything behind that meeting then. So if
Yes,
we
let's
need
go
to have a,
Tuesday at 1:30.
yep, and if we have to take a break and come back to it, then we'll do that. But let's make sure that we get out of there with a decision.
I know Jason and we talked about, earlier this year, when we were doing Idaho Institute of Court Management up in Boise, that we were gonna try and sneak some time and talk to, the elected up there about how they actually run master calendars, because I think it's a worthwhile conversation.
Yeah.
And I talked with him quite a bit about it, and now, of course, it's not live, we're not going over, it's gonna be on Zoom. But, still, it's a worthwhile conversation. I think I think that our judges here have a very nice situation that could still maintain to be really nice. It's just, that's not gonna be, I liken this to being, working in an operating room where a surgeon doesn't own that operating room. They're not the only one that does it, a surgery there. There are 3, 4, 5 surgeons that'll do a surgery in one operating room in a day.
Yeah.
And I think that we can wrap our heads around that with our courts here and create a fine system. The TCA in Ada County is the one that facilitates the calendaring. I've talked with Philip a little bit about it. And so I don't know if that is something that you could take on, or if we need to get somebody else to help with that, or we just have one of the clerks downstairs do it, or what. But you and I can talk about that. That'll be our...
Well, and I think, again, it's the maximization of resources. That's the main conversation. We're just limited, and we just have to do the best we can.
And I think that's true. Whenever all the courtrooms, the commission sharing room, every big space that we have, when the lights are off during business hours, that's not being used to its full capacity, right?
Yeah.
So we all come to the table and have that conversation and see what we need to do to make it work.
Okay. All right.
Great.
Tuesday
Thank
then.
you.
Ernie, do you got anything else on this?
No, I'm good.
All right. We'll see everybody Tuesday. Keep working on that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kerry. Thanks, Dan.
Hey, I'm Kerry.
Gary, we met over the Zoom real quick.
Yeah,
No, there's
yeah,
nice
to see you in person.
I've been between the fair and
We haven't.
taking
We
some
still gotta have
time
times that we have to
take care of
identify
some
for
family
sure.
stuff.
on
No,
that.
no
That's why I'm
problem.
saying there were still
We'll
issues
come
we need
down
to,
and
we still need to identify. That's
Thanks,
why
Gary.
We need to go forward and keep working, but we're not ready to have a
Spend money.
full go, because we might run into some issues of public works and other issues that way. Well, if we do it ourselves, it doesn't go bad. If it stays in-house,
Yeah, but there's still some reporting you may have to do on subs.
there are.
That's not being done right now.
Yes. All right, resolutions. We have resolution number 2021-92 approving September 2021 alcohol license. I'm just going to read through all these first, and then we'll take care of them all in one motion. We have resolution number 2021-93 approving September 2021 salaries. We have resolution 2021-94 authorization, authorizing the destruction of Board of Guardian files. Resolution 2021-95 adopting ordinance 2021-11 amendment number 1 to the county flood damage prevention ordinance, and county ordinance 2021-11 amendment number 1 to the county flood damage prevention ordinance of Bannock County. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 92, 93, 94, 95, and 11 as presented.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there further discussion or any other motions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. That is the last time. This is a public meeting where you may listen, you will not speak. If you do it again, you will be removed and you will be asked to leave the courthouse, and we will trespass you. That is it. There is no discussion. Out. Now. Out. You want to disrupt the meeting? Out. If I ask again, I'm calling the marshals. Are you quiet? No, you don't. Out. Get the marshal right now. Call the marshal. Okay. We'll wait. Quiet.
Do you wanna go into recess?
We'll just wait right here. They're right there.